I'm absolutely thrilled to bring you this podcast with Angela McAllister. Angela talks about stones that speak and tell their stories. Henry Moore, a fantastic ceremonial axe that she found in England but originated in the Italian Alps, and of course the art of finding a knapped flint.
My name's Angela McAllister and I write for children. I live in Shaftesbury, but I have been living in Martin for the last 30 years, so I'm very local here.
You were just saying that you're a bit tired today.
Well, I was just explaining to you that I've been doing some painting and drawing, and I've been painting the soil, the ground beneath my feet, because I do a lot of archaeology, a lot of field walking and a lot of geophysics, a lot of surveying with the Avon Valley Archaeological Society that I belong to. So we spend days and days moving pegs and tapes and staring at our feet. And so for me, the landscape in microcosm is the landscape I see beneath my feet. So I've been photographing and drawing that sort of rich, extraordinary landscape beneath your feet. Lots of flint and shells and feathers and stubble and weeds, and fascinating to me.
When did you first start looking down?
Well, it's curious because I would say I've had a very urban life. I've lived in the city and the town, and it's only since I've moved to the countryside that I've been walking in that way and looking down. But actually I remember as a girl I used to have recurring dreams about maybe it's from walking to school, about looking down at the gutter, that meeting point between the edge of the road and the pavement, the edge of the pavement, where there would always be sort of detritus, sweepings and little bits of weed and ring pulls and all sorts of things like that. And in my mind, that was a place of treasure. And I used to always look. I was a shy girl, so I think I always walked with my eyes to the ground. But I would have these long, long dreams, which were just walking miles and miles and miles, staring at the gutter, hoping to find something magical. And I only just remembered that recently, and it seems like such a premonition of what I do now, which is very much to focus on the ground beneath my feet. Curious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is curious, but can you remember when I came over to your house, and because we'd been messaging each other about flint and fossils, and you showed me your collection of Stone Age?
Yeah, I've got a lot of. I've got a wonderful collection of prehistoric artefacts, stone artefacts, flint tools, things that I picked up in the fields when we're working, and then when I'm walking as well. One of the lovely things about doing the archaeology is that we have permission to be in farmland in the plough soil where one wouldn't normally walk. So over the years I've been lucky enough to find and collect all sorts of wonderful things, and which I take to school. I share with children. I share with students on digs. They're stones that speak and tell their story, and eventually they'll go to the museum if anybody wants those that are special. But for now, they do a job. They've come into my hands, and they have stories to tell, and so I share them.
But I couldn't believe how many you had. They're all organised in a chest of drawer, which must have, how many drawers are there in the chest of drawer? About,
I've never counted.
There must be about 100, yeah. And each of these 100 drawers is absolutely full of. What would you say? Would you say the predominant stone was flint?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flint around here, is what people have used for their tools for thousands and thousands of years, and so the ground is layered with that evidence of people's lives and their work, And if you have an eye for it and you know what you're looking at, I rarely go for a walk without bending down, like you, I know, without bending down and picking up something interesting. It might not be a flint artefact, it might be like your fossil or something else interesting, but yes, we live in a very well-established landscape here.
But you say this, right, but the items that you've picked up, they're raw flint, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the distinction between them and all the other flints are tiny, really, aren't they? And yet you spot them.
Well, there are certain, once you understand how man works with flint, how flint is knapped, then there are certain physical characteristics which really stand out. So there'll be, the evidence of knapping will catch your eye, and also in certain weather, in certain light. A frosty morning is a good time to see knapped flint. So I think, like anything, once you've learnt to look, although occasionally I find something I haven't got a clue what it is, but I know that man has operated upon it. I know that it's been shaped and formed in some way, and I was very, very lucky one day to pick up a piece of green stone. I knew from the shape of it that it had been shaped and polished, but it was a broken chunk of something, and it certainly wasn't flint. I went home, and I've got various books of geology, and I looked up, I tried to find this, any reference to this beautiful mossy green stone, and I couldn't. I brought it to Martin Green at Down Farm, who looks at everything that I find and has been such an amazing tutor really over the years, taught me so much, and he knew exactly what it was. And it was jadeite, which is a form of jade, and it's mined in the Italian Alps, comes from the Italian Alps, and this little piece of stone, which is about, I don't know, maybe 5 centimetres square, with a beautiful lens profile, and it has come all the way from the Italian Alps, and it was probably already hundreds and hundreds of years old before it was brought over to Britain, and it's a very special object. It's a sort of ceremonial axe, if you like. It's a part of an axe which was never made to be used, but was a very special object. And the effort to go up into the mountains and source this rock would have been part of maybe some sort of initiation ceremony. It would have been only a few people would have been chosen to go up into the mountains. You would have to go into the sort of liminal zone above the cloud line. Also, they only had fire and stone to use to access, to break the rock. They would have brought some small amount of rock, of this jadeite rock, down from the mountain, even though it was freely available as boulders in the river valleys. They didn't take that. Part of sourcing the stone was the journey, was the spiritual and physical journey up into the mountain, which would have been dangerous, risky, only possible to do so many days of the year. So there would have been a huge amount of significance in being chosen to make that journey to source and fetch the rock, and then to bring it down from the mountain and to shape it and to create these beautiful axes, and then to polish them so that they shine like glass, that they are utterly beautiful, beautiful objects, various different shades of green, and there are some other types of stone that they used as well, and hundreds of hours to polish with grit or sand and water, and then these axes would have had huge significance and value. Somebody said to me once that they would have had history, a name. They were very highly prized objects, and maybe exchanged in in sort of for marriage or in some sort of arrangements between clans and families. And slowly they were disseminated across Europe. Slowly, over hundreds of years, these axes were traded and moved, and slowly they moved across Europe. And some of them made their way to northern France, where they were remodeled, and you can see images of them and carvings. And some of them, a very few of them, made the journey over to Britain with those very early first farmers, the first Neolithic farmers that came over. And I like to think that my little fragment of axe maybe would have been significant for a family or a group, hoping that it would keep them safe on that journey to the unknown, in a world where there were all sorts of unknown dangers and fears, and maybe that they would have put their trust in this beautiful ancient object. And what makes it particularly interesting is the way that it's broken, because it has lost its gloss. It has its beautiful mossy green colour, fabulous colour, but it has been broken in quite a particular way, showing that it was deliberately broken. The stone doesn't break in this way if it's just accidentally broken. So it has been decommissioned as an object, in the way that in the Neolithic often they would bury objects in pits, skulls, all sorts of objects, and also they would decommission things and return them to the earth. And so this has been ritually broken and it's been burnt, which is why it doesn't have its gloss, and it has tiny black hairline fractures in it from the heat of the fire. And so I love it more for that, because it tells me more about the story. It tells me I know about its beginning and its end. And it seemed to want to be found the day that I picked it up. So again, I like to tell its story. I like to put it in people's hands so they can really feel that, and that tangible power of that stone, and to share it. Now I've shared it with you.
There's so much in what you've just said. It's quite emotional, isn't it? But there are two things that I'm really curious about. The first one was when you were talking about the journey of the person getting that particular type of stone, and that made me think of landscape connection, really, because there's some connection there. And then you said the stone wanted to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't help but feel that, and I know you feel the same when you find extraordinary fossils. That the chance of somebody bending down and picking up some of the things you've shown me is a bazillion to one. There's no other way of understanding it, really. There is a moment in time where an object offers itself to your hand and it just feels right.
Yeah, I really think that, and I think that we should try and explain how remote the chances are of finding something. Can you give an example of something you found recently that justifies this concept of wanting to be found?
Oh golly, you've put me on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, while you think about that, I'll just say about this big bit of flint here, which we were looking at earlier. That's got a fossilised plant in it. And the fossilised plant's all stubby, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Yes. And how many million years old could it be?
I think it's about 60. God. Yeah, 60 million years old. But so, going back to what we're talking about, like wanting to be found. So this was in an agricultural field in Wiltshire, and I was walking along, and it was really, really wet. And because it was wet, the pattern was easier to see. And it's what you're talking about, things standing out because you're looking for it, So you're expert in archaeologically speaking, so you notice how people have worked on the stones, and I'm not at all. But I always notice a kind of foreign body in the stone.
I was just going to say, it's noticing what shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
isn't it? Sometimes, even if you don't know what it is, it's not a normal feature of that rock, and so you stop, and that's what catches your eye, isn't it, sometimes?
Yes. But these are in vast fields.
It
They're in
extraordinary.
vast
It's
fields
true.
of. How many hundreds and thousands of square feet the fields are?
Yeah.
They're massive, aren't they? And there's I don't know how many thousands, maybe even millions of stones there are, and then somehow the eye is caught.
And I like to think that's always been the case. And sometimes you find a flint tool that has a very distinctive band of colour, or there's a very famous hand axe which has a beautiful fossil shell right in the centre of it. And, there seems to be no question that the person who created that axe was drawn to the aesthetic quality of the stone with the fossil in the centre of it. So, it's lovely. These notions, they link us in time with what persists, with that human. And, some of these things, the hand axes, we're not talking about Homo sapiens, we're talking about, Neanderthal or pre-Neanderthal people. So, this delight, this sort of aesthetic delight in fashioning an object, because of its beauty, of a particular feature it contains, a fossil or whatever it might be. I love that. It's how we feel grounded in our ancestors. I think what we share.
Yeah, and it's quite a profound connection, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah?
It's very profound, and I think that's why, when you're out in the field, out in the landscape for whatever reason, if you take the time to really understand where you are, what's beneath your feet, the geology comes into play. It's so powerful, and everything that we see above ground is there because of what's beneath our feet. So more and more understanding the geology, it links you back into, really into the deep past. So I find that very comforting. It puts me in my place. It makes me think, anything that I'm fretting and worrying about now is, in the blink of an eye, is of no significance really in the scheme of things. And if you can take a moment to ground yourself in deep time, it steadies you. It doesn't stop you from having to deal with the challenges of life, but it steadies you and roots you in something which is builds your sort of resilience. I think it strengthens you. I believe so anyway.
I really agree with that. That grounding that you're talking about, it has within it the beauty of that fossil in the flint that was so beautiful to people thousands of years ago, and is still beautiful to us today. Yeah. Everything that has happened since might just as well not have happened, because we still think the same thing is utterly beautiful.
Well, and also, that flint axe will fall to the ground at some point. Everything that we're striving for now, the stone will persist, and that is, I find that quite comforting too.
Me too. Yeah. Can I ask you about flint as well, Angela?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we were talking about it earlier, and I was showing you some of the flints that my mum gave me for my birthday, and she brought these from our previous home, and she lugged them around and kept them on her allotment.
And they're big chunky pieces as well.
Yeah. I was really
Lovely.
embarrassed when she took them out of the car because they were heavy, and it seemed wrong that she was, anyway. But she and I are both very emotional about flint, and you were mentioning about that as well, and I was wondering what your feelings were about flint.
Well, I love to have it around me. Now I'm off the chalk. I still surround myself with, I can't help but put a piece of flint in my pocket when I'm walking. And you think about people like Henry Moore, who used the form of flint in his work.
I didn't know that.
Oh gosh, yes. In his studio, you'll see lots of maquettes. So he would pick up a piece of flint when he was walking, especially with a rounded forms. As we know, you've got all sorts of wonderful knobbly rounded forms, and he would take them back if they suggested some sort of form to him, and he might add then plaster to suggest maybe a human form, or he would compile them in other ways. So actually, when you look at a lot of his sculptures, you can see the way that flint often has a hole through it, but these lovely soft rounded forms. You can and his lots of wonderful sketches and drawings as well. So he was hugely responsive to flint forms. They're so sculptural, and I think maybe that is why we like to pick them up, hold them in our hands. They have a weight, they have a wonderful texture. Where they've been broken, they have these beautiful smooth surfaces, and then you've got the patina. The colours are extraordinary. I always think, looking in a piece of broken flint where you'll have this white sort of rind where it's dried out, and then inside, as you say, when it's wet, but the colours are sharper, and very often the blacks and blues will have these milky white sort of fugitive shapes floating in them, and like little universes, I think. They're very evocative, extraordinary things, and they're so tactile. I think it's wonderful.
It's amazing how it's such a comfort.
Curious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is curious, because it's really, as you say, the nodules, they're very voluptuous, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
But when you work it or nap it, it's sharp.
Oh gosh, yes, and it's so sharp. I think until the 1970s, flint was used in eye operations. Yeah, it's so hard and so sharp. And what's wonderful about it is you can predict how it will break. That's what makes it so useful for tool making, is that you can control the way that it fractures and breaks. So, if bits were flying off in a random fashion, it would be useless. But, you can, from the angle and the type of blow, a skilled napper can really, well, as you see extraordinary, beautifully faceted arrowheads and some, very fine work. So, yes, it's got extraordinary qualities.
What's the thing that you found in flint that you're most fond of?
Oh gosh, I think it's not an individual stone. It's the ability to connect. It's not. I mean, I've got a little shelf unit on my desk, which is my own little gallery, and I change the exhibition of flints whenever I want, and so I've got little cubby holes, and at the moment I think I've got some fabricators in there, which are tools that are used to make tools, and all sorts of lovely things. And so when I'm sitting at my desk, I will just reach out and take one off the shelf and hold it in my hand and study it again, look at it again, and then I'll change those over time as well. But yes, I mean, individual stones give me pleasure, but it is that moment of knowing, especially when you first pick something up, there's this fantastic charge that that the last person to hold that piece of flint may have lived 500,000 years ago. Well, I've got Paleolithic flint, which goes back possibly that far, and it's difficult to explain when it's such a it's like an electric shock, it makes me feel that that I was already sort of preordained to hold that piece of stone, that when the person who made that tool picked the nodule up and worked it and made that, I was already written into the story of that stone, as are the people who will interact with it in the future that I can't imagine. That inherent in that piece of stone was my interaction with it. It's a very profound feeling of belonging. It's a material belonging. It probably sounds ridiculous, but I can't put it any other way, really. I think you feel the same.
I do. I do feel the same. But it's really lovely to have you describe it, because it's very difficult to describe.
It is.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. You've been absolutely brilliant.
It's a pleasure to share it.
Thank you so much. Subscribe to Nature Talks with Humans for more true stories of people communicating with animals, birds and landscape. Follow me on Instagram at Estelle_writer44 and TikTok at Estelle Phillips. Bye!